The year was 1623, in a valley where fog clung to the soil like a restless spirit. The village of Grevenmore was small, forgotten by kings and lords, yet haunted by a fear that stretched beyond its borders. For months, the crops had withered without reason, livestock gave birth to twisted offspring, and the river that once shimmered with trout had turned murky, as if poisoned by unseen hands. It was in the midst of this misery that the whispers began. They spoke of Anneliese Brandt, a woman who lived at the edge of the woods, away from the village square. She was neither young nor old, with hair dark as raven feathers and eyes that seemed to reflect more than daylight. She brewed herbs for the sick, spoke kindly to children, and sometimes vanished into the forest at night. To some, she was a healer. To others, she was the reason their wheat rotted in the ground. When the miller's child fell ill, coughing black phlegm and speaking words no child should know, the accusations solidified. The boy had pointed with shaking fingers and whispered, "She stands in my room at night." The priest, Father Matthias, had long warned of the devil's work. He spoke in the chapel of women who gave their souls in exchange for unnatural powers. The villagers listened, trembling, and when the boy died with a twisted smile upon his lips, they marched to Anneliese's cottage with torches. Her home was searched. Inside, they found dried herbs, jars of unknown liquids, and beneath the floorboards, a small leather-bound book filled with writings in a language no one could read. Worse still, behind her house, buried shallow in the soil, they unearthed the bones of animals arranged in circles, each skull etched with symbols that seemed to writhe under torchlight. The verdict was whispered before she was even brought to the square: witch. They dragged her, barefoot, across the cobblestones. Her dress was torn, her arms bound with rough rope. Yet she did not weep or beg. Instead, she looked upon the faces of her neighbors, men and women she had healed, fed, comforted, and her lips curved in a faint, knowing smile. "Do what you must," she said softly, her voice carrying through the night air. "But know this, the fire you kindle will not be the one to save you." And though her words were calm, the villagers shuddered as if she had spoken a curse. The trial was a spectacle, though no true justice was sought. In Grevenmore, guilt was not proven, it was assumed. Father Matthias presided over the proceedings, Bible in hand, eyes gleaming with something both holy and feverish. Anneliese was placed upon a wooden chair in the chapel. Around her, the villagers gathered, whispering prayers. The priest began his questions. "Did you consort with the devil?" Silence. "Did you poison the fields, the cattle, the river?" Her eyes lifted, steady, and she spoke. "The land dies because you bleed it dry. The cattle sicken because you starve them. The river darkens because you throw your filth into it. Do not lay upon me the weight of your sins." The crowd hissed. One woman clutched her rosary so tightly it cut into her palm. Father Matthias's face hardened. "Confess your pact, and you may yet save your soul." Anneliese leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper that still carried to the rafters. "What you call the devil, I call the truth, and the truth is hungry." At that moment, the candles in the chapel flickered, though no wind had entered. A baby in the crowd began to wail uncontrollably, and its mother nearly fainted when she swore she saw a shadowed hand stroke the child's cheek. By dawn, the decision was made. There would be no mercy. The stake was raised in the village square. Bundles of wood were piled high, dry, and eager to burn. The villagers gathered, some trembling, some eager to see justice done. Children clung to their mother's skirts, eyes wide, with a mixture of fear and fascination. Annalise was tied to the post. Her hair, loose and wild, fell across her face. She was barefoot, her toes curled against the cold earth, but her gaze was proud. Father Matthias lifted his Bible. "May the flames cleanse this soul. May the fire drive out the devil's work." The torch was lowered. Flames licked the wood, crackling and spitting. Smoke curled into the sky. The crowd watched, some whispering prayers, others biting their lips in dread. Annalise did not scream. She did not plead. She began to speak. The words were low, guttural, not of any tongue the villagers knew. Her eyes rolled back, her voice deepened, and from the flames came a sound like 1,000 whispers all at once. The fire should have consumed her quickly, but instead it bent unnaturally, curling away from her body. Sparks swirled in patterns, forming shapes that writhed and twisted. Faces, eyes, mouths opening wide in silent screams. Several villagers dropped to their knees. One man collapsed, clutching his chest. A child pointed and cried out that he saw black wings rising behind her. And then she laughed, a sound so cold, so hollow, that it split the air like a blade. When at last her body blackened and crumbled, a sudden wind swept through the square, extinguishing every torch, every lantern. Darkness fell upon Grevenmore. Father Matthias raised his voice, though it trembled. She is gone. Her evil perished. But deep down, every villager felt the same gnawing certainty. Something had been unleashed. The morning after the burning, the village of Grevenmore woke to silence. The square still reeked of smoke, and the charred stake still stood like a blackened finger pointing at heaven. Yet no birds sang, no crows cawed over the ashes. It was as though the world itself held its breath. At first, the villagers tried to go on as before. Men returned to their plows, women to their weaving, children to their games. But unease lingered, heavy as fog. The miller's wife swore she saw Annalise's shadow move across her wall, though no one stood there. The blacksmith's hammer broke in his hand, slicing his palm open. The blood spattered in a pattern eerily like the same symbols carved into the bones behind her cottage. By nightfall, things worsened. A shepherd found all 12 of his sheep dead, their bodies twisted as if burned from within, though their wool was untouched. The tavern keeper's daughter woke screaming, claiming someone had whispered her name from beneath the floorboards. Father Matthias urged them to pray harder, to attend Mass daily, to trust in God's mercy. But even as he spoke, his hands trembled, for he had seen something too. When he opened his Bible in the candlelight, the ink upon one page had bled and reformed into one sentence. The fire feeds the fire. Sleep became rare. Dreams plagued every villager. Dreams of the square, the flames, Annalise's eyes glowing in the smoke. Some swore they awoke with soot on their skin. One boy coughed in his sleep, and when his mother rushed to him, ash fell from his lips instead of breath. By the end of the week, the priest could no longer deny it. The witch had not died in silence. She had left them with something, a wound in the world, festering, growing deeper each night. It was old Frau Gerda who whispered first of the woods. She was the oldest in the village, hunched and blind in one eye, but her memory stretched further than anyone's. She croaked one evening as the villagers argued in the tavern. She was not alone, Gerda croaked. Annalise was but one branch of a tree with many roots. The others, they meet in the forest, where the stones are black and the trees twist toward the sky. The villagers silenced her, but the seed was planted. Rumors spread of a hidden clearing deep within the forest. Some spoke of a stone altar, stained darker than time. Others claimed to have seen lights flickering between the trunks,
like lanterns carried by no human hand. Finally, a group of men, the blacksmith, the miller, and 3 farmhands, set out at dusk to see for themselves. They carried axes, knives, and wooden crosses tied around their necks. Father Matthias blessed them at the chapel door, though his face was pale as he did so. They entered the forest. At first, the woods were still. Only the crunch of leaves beneath their boots and the rustle of unseen creatures broke the silence. But as the men pressed deeper, the air grew heavy. The trees loomed taller, their bark blackened, their branches claw-like. Strange markings appeared on trunks, carved deep as if by burning knives. Then they found it. A clearing unlike any other. In its center lay a great stone slab, dark and slick, as though perpetually wet. Around it, bones hung from branches